how do we forgive and move on?
And rebuild trust. Because if we forgive, we have to also rebuild the trust.
So, good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to another Family Talk Live with the Dookies. Okay, so hopefully that will eventually be like a ring for you. Family Talk Live with the Dookies. And we're happy that you are here with us. You didn't have to be, but you are here. So we are blessed by your presence. We are very blessed by your presence. Let us know where you're joining from. And please feel free as we go through this conversation to ask your questions, ask for clarification, or just leave your comments. We really love hearing from you. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I'm Sanya Dookie.
And I'm Courtney Dookie.
And we are psychotherapists and also your Christian marriage and parenting coaches, where our deep desire and calling is to help Christian families and Christian-minded families to be restored, restoring their family altar, restoring their marriage, and restoring their parenting journey. All right, so today we're talking about two things, and Dr. Dookie here mentioned that it's two very heavy topics. So we're going to try to see how well we can
go through them. If potential exists, we have to come back to them.
Yes.
These topics are significant topics. We're looking at forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
We also look at rebuilding trust.
Yeah.
Both of those in our program, both of those are two separate things to work on. But some of the comments that came in pointed out that are requested that we talk about these two topics. So we'll come back to them, but we'll start the introduction today as to the importance of forgiveness. And again, I want to repeat what Sana said. Send your comments in. Do you think forgiveness is an essential component in a healthy marriage? Or even a marriage that is struggling? Do you think forgiveness is important? And what's the role forgiveness has been playing in your marriage or the people around you? You look at their marriage and their relationships. How do you see forgiveness playing? So send your comments or your thoughts about forgiveness.
Yes. And is forgiveness, can we abuse forgiveness?
Abuse forgiveness. It's always a tricky thing to with that question.
So hopefully we'll be answering that.
Yes, it's a tricky question because oftentimes people will say to me, but Jesus said you forgive 70 times 7. So there is an unlimited kind of forgiveness from Jesus' perspective. But are there limits to forgiveness? And like you asked the question, can you abuse forgiveness?
Yeah.
The question is, just by asking the question, can you forgive, can you abuse forgiveness, creates a different question. And the question it creates is, if I am deliberately abusing this thing, something needs to change. If I'm you see, if when someone forgives me and I keep doing the same thing over and over, if I deliberately do it because I'm taking the other person for granted, that's problematic, right? So, but if in some ways I'm struggling with something, and I keep and within the relationship, we agree and recognize that there is a struggle, then that's a different scenario. So it depends on the different scenarios we can play this.
And I'm glad that you're clarifying that. So as we start out talking about forgiveness, first off, a lot of times when we hear, can I forgive and rebuild trust? We usually think it's only related to infidelity. And yes, that is one of the factors for sure. But there are other things as well where a spouse has to forgive. It could be feeling disappointed based on an expectation that they had from the other person. I gave in the write-up that I had there. It could be that your husband wasn't as helpful and you were in pain and you needed so much help when you just had your baby. And that is something that you've always had in your heart, and because of that you've lost trust in him and your ability to depend on him, and so you start doing everything for
So,
yourself, by yourself, without asking for that help. And that can be carried over years and years and years. And the other aspect is it could be that husband who was going through a really low time in their life, a really tough
mhm,
time, and that support that they needed from their wife during that point in
point time.
time, that wife was MIA,
Yes.
right? They were in their own world and they were not compassionate enough. And because of that, now the husband sees that as
Mhm.
she didn't care for me, she doesn't care for me, therefore, I guess I
Yeah.
gotta just keep things in from now on, or try to do things myself. So there are different things that can cause rupture in relationship, not just
Infidelity.
infidelity, but it could be anything. And maybe you guys can give us different scenarios. It doesn't have to be yours, of course, but different scenarios of what can cause rupture and can fester as a wound, can be a wound that festers over a period of time.
A big thing to think about, and it goes back to what we talked about last week: resentment.
Yeah.
If you remember, what we asked you guys to do last week was to write down anything that you feel within yourself that you have resentment
Mm-hmm.
towards your partner. It doesn't matter how small it is.
Mhm.
If there is resentment, then there is need for forgiveness. Again, if there is resentment, there is need for forgiveness.
Mhm.
So, in other words, anything that causes one to resent their partner for something,
Yeah.
there is some room within that context for forgiveness, and also room for forgiveness. And once there's room for forgiveness, there's then going to be room for rebuilding trust.
Yes.
Because oftentimes the things that cause us the most pain in
Mhm.
our relationship are those things that are persistent. They keep happening over and over and over again,
Yeah.
to the point we just give up and we're like, hey, whatever, I'm not even going to bother with this anymore. We
Mhm.
hold that resentment, and guess what? We don't trust our partner.
Yeah.
Take it, for example, say the husband is supposed to take out the garbage. We're going to use very simple examples here.
Mhm.
Take out the garbage, right? But consistently, he has failed or somehow keep forgetting to take out the garbage.
Mhm.
What this means, the wife gets to the place where she says, "Well, I can't trust him
Yeah.
to take out the garbage. So you know
Yeah.
what? I know the garbage is coming. I'm just going to do it
Yeah. It
myself."
depends on me.
And because now you've taken out the garbage because you can't trust him to take it out, you have some resentment towards him.
Yeah.
And you're like, he's not helpful. He's not. So these are different ways. And imagine that continues
Mhm.
for years and years.
Yeah.
Then that builds up into resentment. So simple things
Yeah.
can cause resentment.
There's a comment here that one of the things that can cause a rupture and fester is lying. That
Definitely.
can so because lying is how would you classify that now? Okay, when I remember the word, I'll let you know. I have the word at the tip of my tongue, but
But the
it's not
thing about
coming.
lying, it breaks down trust.
It does.
Right?
It does.
So, and there's a saying that anything that's in the dark
Yeah.
will come to light. So even in our relationship, and another couple say to me sometimes, can we really be absolutely honest in our relationship? And I'm saying, yes, you can. Is it easy? No. Because sometimes you prefer not to share certain things or talk about certain things. But those things over time eats
Mhm.
away at the person who doesn't want to share it, but it also places a barrier in the growth of the relationship, right?
Yes.
So lying is a big one,
Mhm.
and I oftentimes hear this saying, "White lies are okay." In godly marriage, no lies are okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Repeat that, please. Repeat.
Yeah. So literally, in godly marriage, there is no place for lying.
Yeah.
White, black, purple, pink, orange,
No
whatever.
type of lie.
There's no type of lying.
Yes.
When we think about white lie, it opens door for bigger ones. Don't get me wrong. I know people will sometimes nitpick at this and say, "What if I'm planning a surprise and I just can't say anything? What do I do? Is it a lie still?" Well, you gotta figure that out. Find ways and means to do it that doesn't make you lie,
Yeah.
right? Because once we start to create a context in which we entertain the white lies,
Mhm. It becomes a habit.
It becomes a habit, and once you entertain that, it moves into bigger things. So the key thing is, try to understand your partner to the best as you can. Be truthful to yourself. I'm gonna be truthful to myself. If I can't be truthful to myself, I can't be truthful to Sanya. It's virtually impossible. So to be transparent with me, because when all is said and done, it's in my mind.
It's in your mind, yeah. And you know, a lot of discord happen in relationships due to dishonesty.
Dishonesty.
Right? I know, like, we don't want to stay on this topic tonight, but a lot of discord happen as a result of that. So let us move on. If there's anything else that comes to mind for you, things that causes a rupture in relationship, and even though people may think it's a small thing, or the spouse may think it's small, but for you it's big.
Big, yes.
And that is something that you've had a hard time or difficult time forgiving the spouse for. You know, doesn't have to be your experience per se, but let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So when it comes to forgiveness, it is something that we cannot see.
No.
Right? Well, not right away, or not. It's an intangible thing that can become seeable in certain areas.
Yes.
Now, what I'm talking about here, because you know, a lot of times we think, oh, yeah, I can go through life without forgiving because it's invisible.
Yes.
But in fact, we're learning that unforgiveness actually affects us on not only a spiritual level, but an emotional and
level.
physical level. So tell us more about that.
So when we, it's a thing that if I choose not to forgive, what we see in the review of the literature is that the person who chooses not to forgive, it causes a constant release of cortisol in their system, so stress hormone in the system. And when the constant release of that cortisol puts the person in almost an eggshell kind of an experience where they're on guard. The constant release of cortisol in the system will lead to multiple other challenges: diabetes, hypertension, low immune system, other physical pains that a person goes through. There's even research that suggests unforgiveness leads to things, autoimmune disorders. So there's so many different things when we have this excessive amount of cortisol being released in the body. In some studies, it have said that there is some connection between insomnia and the lack of forgiveness. And so, in other words, what the research suggests is that we should, at all times, develop an attitude of forgiveness. Notice that I never say a one-off kind of a thing. It's that we need to develop an attitude of forgiveness. Why? Because forgiveness, when I choose not to forgive, it affects me more than the other person. So you said it's invisible, but it may seem invisible, but it manifests itself in physical ways. And if cortisol is being released in my system constantly because I'm choosing not to forgive, then I'm going to be on the edge. What that means, the simplest thing that my partner does, the simplest thing that Sanya does, will tick me off because already I am on this heightened. It seems like, think of it like this: I am in a relationship with a verbal gun that is ready to fire, and I'm choosing not to say anything, keeping everything inside. So it's like I'm walking in the middle of a war zone. Right? So everything you do and you say is seen through the prism of what you did to me that I don't want to forgive you for.
Wow. That's deep, guys. I don't know about you.
Therefore, where I'm in the relationship, but my body almost sees the relationship like I'm in a battlefield.
And that's what I love about our couples coaching program, because we kind of help you to see things from that perspective. And when you understand it from that
Yes.
perspective, you realize why it is so easy to go into toxic communication
Yes.
patterns, and why it's so hard to move past things,
That's it.
because it's in our body, it's in our mind, and I'd say it's in our spirit as well.
It is, because it's hard to connect, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible to have a genuine connection
Yes.
when there is no forgiveness.
Yes.
I want to go as far as to say it is impossible, and maybe some will disagree with me, but it's impossible to have genuine, intimate connection with your partner if there is unforgiveness in the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how can I connect with someone? Because imagine if it's in my body, when my partner touch me, that's not a touch of love anymore, even though she might be touching me in a loving way.
Mhm.
Her touch is not perceived in my body as love anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets messed up in a relationship,
Yeah.
because her touch is perceived as something else.
Mhm.
Therefore, it opens the door. I'm open to other touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if my partner, when she touches me, because my body is responding to her because I choose not to forgive her, then that's going to cause chaos in the relationship.
Mhm. So this is amazing, guys, and I know, like, he's a guru when it comes to working with couples. So let us know what your thoughts are. Have you ever seen unforgiveness this way before, and do you see that playing out in your relationship? One person here commented that, yeah, that makes so much sense. Thank you. That was the comment there, from one of our viewers. So, okay, now that we have touched a little bit on the impact of unforgiveness, um, it is easy to say forgive. I can say, okay, go forth and forgive. But in reality, it's a task that for some people, it's, yeah, okay, I forgive you. For others, it may be a reminder. So, how can we go about nurturing the spirit of forgiveness in our relationship and in our hearts?
The key thing, as I mentioned before, where we start.
Yeah.
We start by, well, someone says start by connecting to God, having this relationship with God, right? But it's developing between the relationship between you and God,
Mhm.
developing an attitude of forgiveness.
Yeah.
In the research, that's what they point at a lot, an attitude.
Yeah.
In our lives, oftentimes it's not just our spouse who don't forgive. It's people around us. It is the things that are happening to us with our co-workers and our children and different things and our families and different pieces. Or we grew up in an environment in which we were toxic and we went through a lot, and we haven't forgive people who have done things to us, parents, caregivers. So this is something with unforgiveness is something potentially we've been practicing for years.
And perhaps we struggle with forgiving ourselves as
For
well.
ourselves, exactly. So the first thing is to start to pray about it and work towards developing an attitude of forgiveness. How do we start this? When we think of forgiveness, we're not saying just to behave as if nothing happened. The big part of forgiveness is that once we're open to develop that attitude, we need to feel what is there. It's okay that if someone does something, include our spouse or our children or whatever family dynamic we have, if someone does something to cause us pain, we need to attune to that pain. Don't glaze over it. Don't say it's okay. Don't sweep it on the carpet. Really connect to that pain. Is it anger, resentment, sadness, frustration, overwhelmed, feel lesser than? What is going on for you with this? Because it is those feelings that are giving you the big punches. If I have this anger, then I'm going to behave to my spouse in an angry manner. If I am sad because of what happened on this forgiveness, I'm going to withdraw in my relationship. If I have fear because of something happened and I don't want to deal with this unforgiveness, I tend to avoid. So whatever the emotions we're feeling due to our unwillingness
Mhm.
to forgive, those emotions are going to dictate how I behave. Either withdraw in the relationship, stonewall, don't talk about it, or I'm always on the attack defense kind of mode where because I'm angry or something.
Mhm.
So we gotta face those emotions.
So you're saying validate the feelings that comes with it.
Yes.
Don't brush it under the carpet
No.
and say, okay, forget it. Yeah, it's forgotten.
No.
But at the same time, we know that we're hurt. We're probably still hurt by it.
Yes.
Brushing it aside doesn't mean that you're healing from it.
No. And sometimes people say, you know what, I forget it. But if it is very significant,
Yeah.
and there's some things, don't get me wrong, there's some things you might forget. Like it happened, you're like, okay, cool, whatever, I forget that.
Move on.
I move on from that, and that's okay. But when something significant happens, and how do you know if it's significant? Well, the emotion is not going anywhere. You're feeling intense emotion over it. Two, every time something comes up in the relationship, that's your go-to. It's like, yeah, you remember when you did this? Remember when this happened? Either you're saying it out aloud or you're thinking it, internalizing
Yeah.
it. So those are pieces you know. You know what? If every time a conversation comes up, you keep going back to those things, you know that you haven't dealt with that yet. And that's something you need to deal with.
Yes.
So one, acknowledge your feelings. Then ask yourself a question. And it's going to be, what could be, what are the pros and the cons for forgiving,
Yeah,
or not forgiving?
yes.
What are the pros and cons for that? Who is it going to affect? You know, it is often said that unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
So, what are the pros and the cons for this? Oftentimes, we get into this mindset that the other person don't deserve it.
Yes. Yeah, that's a common one.
It's
That's a
not
common one.
about the other person.
Yeah.
Do you deserve to be set free? What are the pros and the cons for this thing? There's also, you take responsibility by acknowledging how you messed up.
Yes.
So, did you play a role in what happened? Because everything that happens in a relationship, both people are responsible. A part of forgiveness is, if there was something that you did, then you take responsibility for that. So you notice what we're doing here. The first part of forgiveness is turning what? Inward. I got to understand, like David said, what? Search me, oh God, and see. We got to see what's going on inside of us. Because whatever's inside, we're going to project to my spouse. Maybe my spouse did something to trigger the things inside. And yes, they might have done that thing that triggers that inside. But I am responsible for all the things that are triggered inside. And I need to do something about it to prevent me from getting sick. Right? So we talk about the responsibility you play, talking about looking at the emotions that you're looking at. There is a place where reconciliation would start by you releasing that pain to God. Notice where I said you release it to?
Yeah.
Not release the pain to your partner. Your partner will need to know about that pain. But you first to release the pain to God. A husband, a wife, need to go on your knees and release that pain to God. There will still be, within the marriage, there will still be some reconciliation that needs to take place. But before the reconciliation can take place, guys, we have a powerful advocate. We have a powerful avenue where it's the person who doesn't have God has to find a different way to release that pain. But you can choose, you husband, you wife, you can choose to release that pain to God. And once you've released that pain to God, and you say, God, I want you in my life. Then now we can look at how do we start this process with my partner.
Yeah.
And that might mean that, you know what, I need to sit down with my partner to talk about this.
Even if it's hard.
Even if it's hard.
It probably is going to be
Especially
hard.
if it's hard. I need to sit down with my partner.
Yeah.
And when I do this, there's a whole speaker listener thing that I train couples to do, because there is a right and a wrong way to say the right thing. So that's a skill we have to learn within a relationship. We have to know how to express ourselves in the correct way. The first 5 seconds of any conversation determines how it's going to end. And that's why we say release that pain, connect with the pain within yourself, release the pain to God, and then you set aside. And don't bring it up when you are in an argument. It's the wrong time. It's not the time or the place for it. You want to make sure when you're going to work through this thing with your partner, it's a calm state. You prepare your partner first. You know what? There is something that happened that's been hurting me real bad. I would like to talk about it. Something that happened that is hurting me really bad, and I would like to talk about it. Can we set a time where we can talk about this?
So set the place and the time.
Definitely.
And get your spouse to be mentally ready.
And once you sit down to speak of it, you're going to speak from your perspective.
Yes.
So this is the whole process of forgiveness. You're going to speak from your perspective.
So I think we can spend all evening to talk about forgiveness.
Yes.
There are creative ways, because depending on your personality as well, there are different ways you can approach your husband. Yeah, someone asked, is writing it a good way to share how you feel? You just hit the nail on the head. That's what I was going to say. Yes. This can be through a letter, using the same healthy methods of communicating. Because if you start the first sentence to say, you no good for nothing, that person is going to, that wall,
there's no forgiveness.
Yeah, that defensive wall that's coming up there. So we still observe a healthy way of communicating. If you're more comfortable doing it on paper, by all means, definitely do that. You can find many creative ways of doing it.
The key thing, though, is when you're going to express yourself, the less you can use the word, the 3-letter word, you, it's better for you.
Yeah.
It's a difference between me saying, you makes me angry. Last week you did this, and it really makes me angry and frustrated at you, and it tells me that you don't love me and you don't care for me and you're never there for me. Oh man, if you say that's some attack stuff going on there.
So just picture a corner and that person getting smaller and you're getting bigger and you're pointing your finger at that person, and instead of the person really absorbing what you're saying and how hurt you are, they're busy surviving the moment with you. They're busy trying to see how they're going to defend themselves or get out of the situation, and they in turn might get angry and then start to blame you.
So the best way is, you know what, talk about what you're going through. You know what, last week Sunday, while we were out driving, this happened, or this comment was made, and that comment, I felt unsupported. I felt like at that moment I felt like I was not being loved in our relationship. I felt alone. I felt abandoned. I felt like there was no care, no compassion. And this could be even another thing. If you're sick and you feel like your partner wasn't there, you want to say something. I felt abandoned. I felt alone. I felt unsupported. I wanted both of us to be in this together. And in that moment, you notice why I said that, right?
Yes.
I wanted both of us to be
Yeah.
in this together.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I felt abandoned. I felt really alone. And I would sometimes even go as far as to say, maybe that wasn't the intention. Maybe the intention wasn't to make me feel that way. And I know that probably wasn't the intention. However, this is how I felt. And ever since it happened, it's been plaguing my mind. And you might have observed that I've been different since then. And I'm different because I'm finding it hard to reconcile what happened or what was said with what's going on now. That I know we love each other, we care for each other, but I'm finding it hard to reconcile the current love with that past pain that I experienced. And I really want your help to get through this. I wanted you to understand what I went through, what that did to me. And you want to drop it there.
Yeah.
You're not asking for an apology.
Yeah. You need to apologize right now.
No, you're not asking for the person to do anything.
Yeah.
You just want your spouse to understand.
So you're providing information. How it impacted you.
Yes.
And what you would have preferred to
happen.
Yeah.
If your partner chooses not to do it, that's up to them. You're not forcing it.
We hope they will
We hope.
want to reconcile. We hope. But we're
forcing
more
it.
likely, based on the way we communicate with them, we're more likely to have that your spouse understanding or trying to understand, because now they're noticing that you're trying to communicate. You're trying to connect with them. Number one, that's what they're getting. Number two, they're able to see what part they had to play in the situation. And it's up to them to see.
And I know we mentioned we talk about trust, but I think we should come back to trust.
I think we should have a part two.
Part two for trust, because I think I want persons who are listening to sit with this forgiveness for a bit.
Yeah.
When I work with couples, it takes a number of sessions to go through this forgiveness piece, because it takes practice. The vernacular, the way how we talk about communicating this, we were never trained to speak and express ourselves like that.
No.
It takes time. It's a new vocabulary.
It's a
literally skill. It takes, when I work with couples, it's probably one of the way we communicate this is probably one of the hardest skill for the couples to work get. But the moment they get it, it revolutionizes everything.
It does.
Because now they can express things, they can talk about things, they see things from a different perspective. And that's why I literally spend a lot of time teaching couples how to express themselves and express pain.
Yes.
Because in every relationship, there will be painful moments.
There will be, yeah.
And we have to learn to express those painful moments in ways that doesn't cause more pain. And this is the root of where forgiveness is wrapped up.
Yeah.
In the how
to
do all of these things.
Yes. Thank you so much. Great advice. That's one of the comments we got. Thank you. Yeah, we love hearing from you. And we did say we're going to talk about how to rebuild trust too, but our sessions are usually, our live talks are usually for half hour. But tune in next week. We're going to continue this conversation. And if you have any follow-up questions from this, you can comment below or message me, because I'm in always my inbox. Actually, this was a topic that someone listened and they said, hey, can you talk about this next time? And so here we are. So you get the chance to let us know what you want to hear us talk about. All right.
And the other thing about it, we'll talk about trust next time.
Yeah.
But you mentioned piece that I think if people are interested in it, we might talk about that too, which is forgiving myself. Because after my spouse expressed to me what I've done, sometimes I can get into a guilt place where I start thinking, man, how can I do that? Did I really? We sort of feel guilty for it. And then we find it hard to forgive ourselves. So I think one of the things we might talk about too is how to forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
So we learn to forgive others what they've done to us. We learn to release that pain that we're feeling now, because we've acknowledged that we've done something wrong,
Mhm.
and learning to accept God's forgiveness for ourselves, but also set myself free of that pain through the power of God. And then definitely we want to get into rebuilding trust
Yes.
in
Yes.
relationships.
So this is something, guys, that we delve deeper into in our couples coaching program. So if this is something that you're interested in hearing more about, please reach out to us. We're here for you. We're here to support you, and we believe for you that your marriage can be restored.
Yes.
We believe for you that you don't have to be just living one day at a time, hoping and praying that something will get better. We believe that it can be a healthy one where you wake up the next day and you're just feeling content and happy.
Mhm.
And no marriage is too broken for God to fix.
Amen.
And I believe the more the the longer, just like a tea bag, right? They say the longer a tea bag is in the hot water, the longer you're in hot water, is it stronger it becomes. I'm not saying it should be in hot water for a very long time. I'm saying if you've been in hot water, you can come out stronger. There you go. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to sharing with you next Monday. Please feel free to share this video, listen to it beside your spouse, share it with them, do your thing. We love when you help us spread the word. Until
Yes.
next time, God bless and have a wonderful week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.